Federal agents in Denver say they have made the largest meth bust in Colorado state history.
They seized 733 pounds worth of the street drug.
It targeted a large drug trafficking network out of Mexico tied to cartels. There were several busts early this year, with the largest being over 700 pounds.
DEA, FBI, and local police have just executed the largest methamphetamine bust in Colorado history, a case that has reshaped the state's war on organized narcotics. In a coordinated effort between the DEA Rocky Mountain Field Division, the FBI Denver office, and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Colorado, agents dismantled a multi-state drug network responsible for moving over 1,000 pounds of methamphetamine through the Front Range and into surrounding states. 15 suspects, including alleged ringleader Marco Antonio da Silva Lara, identified as a cartel-connected kingpin, were arrested during simultaneous raids in Denver, Lakewood, Arvada, and Adams County, marking the culmination of a 2-year federal operation. Officials called it Operation Rocky Vein, a name that now defines the biggest meth seizure Colorado has ever seen.
The people responsible, including a kingpin in Mexico, now face a 15-defendant federal indictment. Wiretaps, undercover operations, extensive surveillance, and swift enforcement action led to enormous seizures in this case.
Lara's organization functioned like a corporation, a continuing criminal enterprise built on precision logistics and cartel supply chains. The group moved meth in commercial shipments disguised as produce, using couriers embedded in freight companies, grocery warehouses, and farm distribution hubs. For years, Lara's network quietly delivered cartel-grade narcotics across the Denver metro area, hiding in plain sight. According to federal filings, the operations command center rotated between rented homes and warehouses, changing locations every few months to stay ahead of detection. Each property served a specific role: one for packaging, one for cash storage, one for transport prep. Agents traced hundreds of encrypted phone calls, cash transfers, and vehicle swaps, a pattern they say mirrors cartel operations in California and Texas. The investigation officially began in January 2023, after DEA analysts detected unusual cargo traffic originating from Nogales, Mexico, bound for Denver produce distributors. The first major seizure occurred in December 2024, when troopers intercepted 96 pounds of meth hidden inside a Greyhound bus compartment near Vail. In February 2025, another 101 pounds of meth and half a kilogram of fentanyl were recovered from a vehicle on I-70. 2 months later, in April 2025, a Lakewood warehouse yielded the operation's biggest find: 733 pounds of methamphetamine concealed in boxes of squash imported from Mexico. Finally, in August 2025, a smaller bust in Arvada added another 50 pounds, confirming the network's statewide reach. By the time the warrants were executed, the total seizures stood at 1,115 pounds of meth, 22 firearms, and $156,000 in cash. The definitive proof of an industrial-scale cartel pipeline operating inside Colorado. The takedown unfolded at sunrise across 6 counties. Tactical units breached doors in unmarked SUVs as helicopters circled over Denver's west side. Inside one of the Lakewood sites, agents found industrial freezers, propane tanks, and commercial mixing tools, all consistent with large-scale drug conversion. One agent described it bluntly: it wasn't a stash house. It was a meth factory. Over the next 48 hours, the DEA cataloged hundreds of packages marked with false produce labels, each containing quarter-pound bundles wrapped in heat-sealed plastic. The FBI's Evidence Division later confirmed that nearly every shipment traced back to Sinaloa and Jalisco supply lines, establishing clear ties between Lara's network and Mexico's 2 most powerful criminal empires. By the end of the week, 11 suspects were in federal custody, 4 on the run, and one of the largest narcotics enterprises in Colorado's history had fallen. For federal prosecutors, the case wasn't just about drugs. It was about dismantling the infrastructure of a cartel economy operating in plain sight of law enforcement and the public. Federal analysts have now confirmed what investigators suspected from the start. The Colorado network was never independent. It was a functioning arm of both the Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation cartels, Mexico's 2 most powerful criminal organizations. Intelligence recovered from encrypted phones and cross-border cash transfers showed that the meth moving through Denver came straight from industrial-scale laboratories south of Culiacan. Shipments entered the United States hidden among legitimate produce consignments, then traveled north under falsified bills of lading. Each delivery contained hundreds of pounds of crystal meth that were indistinguishable from lawful cargo until chemical testing exposed their origin. The cartels controlled every stage: production, packaging, and logistics, while Colorado served as the mid-continent hub for redistribution. It was the perfect route, one DEA official said. Close enough to the border to restock, far enough inland to vanish. The Lakewood warehouse proved to be the operation's nerve center. Agents who breached the site described it as a warehouse in disguise. Commercial signage out front, narcotics factory inside. The air reeked of solvents and ammonia. Rows of imported fruit boxes were stacked floor to ceiling, each labeled for grocery chains that had never placed an order. Inside the boxes, vacuum-sealed bricks of meth were packed within squash and avocados, each bundle weighing roughly a quarter pound. The sheer volume forced the DEA lab to run non-stop for 4 days to document evidence. Investigators also found industrial freezers, propane tanks, and steel drums used to recrystallize and dry product for shipment. Federal officials later called it the largest single meth seizure ever recorded in Colorado, a find that redefined the scale of cartel infiltration in the state. Out of the 15 defendants named in the federal indictment, 11 are already in custody, while 4 remain fugitives, believed to have fled south across the border. Several of those arrested held dual identities with falsified immigration papers and bank accounts tied to shell businesses in Phoenix and El Paso. The accused ringleader, Marco Antonio da Silva Lara, faces a minimum 20-year federal sentence for continuing criminal enterprise under Title 21 U.S.C. 848, a charge reserved for only the highest-level traffickers. His lieutenants face conspiracy, weapons, and money laundering counts, each carrying potential life sentences. Prosecutors said the group maintained an internal hierarchy with designated bookkeepers, couriers, and enforcers who collected debts through intimidation. Digital forensics uncovered chat logs and photos of firearms, including 22 seized weapons, AR-style rifles, pistols with extended magazines, and unregistered shotguns. They weren't just moving meth, one FBI agent said. They were armed for a war. The scale of the threat stunned even veteran agents. More than 1,000 pounds of methamphetamine equals tens of millions of individual doses, enough to poison entire cities. Each pound of crystal contains roughly 4,500 servings. Multiplied by 1,000, the human toll becomes incalculable. Every shipment we stopped prevented hundreds of overdoses, said DEA Special Agent David Oleski. This was cartel-grade chemistry, industrial purity, mass distribution, and zero regard for life. Officials estimate the street value of the seized meth exceeds $20 million, but the real cost is measured in addiction and violence that ripple through small towns once the product hits local dealers. The case also revealed a trend. Cartels are replacing traditional smuggling routes with embedded U.S. distribution cells. Domestic citizens, rented warehouses, and legal transport firms, allowing them to operate inside America's own supply infrastructure. The Colorado network, they say, was proof that the cartel war is no longer a border issue. It's a national logistics problem. By the time dawn broke over Denver, Operation Rocky Vein had already made history. Streets in Lakewood and Adams County were still taped off as DEA evidence teams hauled crates of narcotics out of safe houses. Residents watched federal trucks roll past with disbelief. Their neighborhoods, once considered quiet, had unknowingly housed one of the most powerful drug pipelines west of the Mississippi. Local law enforcement called it the day the curtain dropped. Federal leaders called it something bigger, a turning point. U.S. Attorney Peter McNeely described the operation as a model of intelligence-driven enforcement, crediting the collaboration between federal analysts and local task forces. This is what happens when we merge data, fieldwork, and persistence, he said. We hit them where it hurts: logistics, product, and profit. The FBI Denver field office, working hand-in-hand with DEA units, confirmed that the takedown had effectively shattered a multi-state distribution corridor that reached as far as Kansas, Nebraska, and Utah. At a press briefing, DEA Special Agent David Oleski stood before a wall of evidence bags containing crystallized meth. This was not street-level crime, he said. This was cartel engineering. Their playbook is efficiency, intimidation, and scale. Federal analysts explained that the meth flooding Colorado came directly from 2 industrial labs in Sinaloa, Mexico, controlled by factions loyal to both El Mayo Zambada and CJNG's El Mencho. Each cartel managed production differently, but they shared a single objective: control of the American meth market. The rivalry between Sinaloa and CJNG had already turned northern Mexico into a battlefield, and now that conflict was spilling north through money and meth. Agents say Lara's group acted as a neutral broker, buying wholesale from both cartels, converting shipments in Colorado, and distributing finished product across the Midwest. It's organized crime with business logic, one intelligence officer said. They outsource violence, but they never outsource control. The federal indictment paints the Sinaloa Cartel as a global enterprise, a paramilitary network masquerading as a business conglomerate. Founded by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, its empire now spans 5 continents, with distribution cells operating in the US, Europe, and Asia. Even after Guzman's capture, Sinaloa's infrastructure has survived through decentralized leadership and financial diversification. From precursor chemical imports in China to meth super labs in Mexico and domestic distribution networks like Lara's, every layer of the trade is designed to sustain production despite enforcement pressure. They've industrialized death, an FBI spokesperson said. Every batch, every shipment, every sale represents 1,000 lives in exchange for profit. Analysts warned that Sinaloa and CJNG have adapted faster than any criminal network in modern history, embracing encryption, crypto transactions, and domestic mules over traditional border smugglers. The Colorado case, they said, proved that cartels no longer just cross the border, they operate within it. In the aftermath of Operation Rocky Vein, Colorado's Attorney General announced new legislation expanding task force funding and mandating interstate cooperation for synthetic drug interdiction. Meanwhile, community leaders across Denver and Lakewood held emergency town halls addressing public safety and youth addiction prevention. Parents who had lost children to meth overdoses stood beside officers and thanked them for bringing accountability to the streets. One resident said, "For years, we heard rumors, trucks at night, strange visitors, but no one imagined this." Sheriff's deputies promised tighter patrols around industrial areas and storage facilities, saying the days of cartel networks hiding in plain sight were over. The DEA's final report put the numbers in black and white: 1,115 pounds of methamphetamine, 22 firearms, $156,000 in cash, and 15 indicted traffickers. But officials made it clear that the operation's success was only one chapter in a larger fight. The cartel's reach doesn't end with one warehouse, Oleski warned. It runs through every highway, every shipment, every handshake that trades money for poison. He paused before delivering the final message, one that echoed through every federal field office from Denver to DC. The Sinaloa Cartel built its empire on chemicals and corpses. But today, their supply line broke in Colorado, and every trafficker still standing should take note. This is how empires fall.